jọba Èkó ọba ní gàbàrò. ọmọ ọba dé.
Wọ́n kéré wọ́n wẹ́wẹ́ wọ́n tíntín wọ́n bíntín wọ́n sùn mọ́ àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí sùn mọ́ sí nọ́mbà wa wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
ẹgbẹ́ tó lè mọ́nà mi orí aládé ni mo dọ̀la ọba Èkó. àdúgbò kọ́kọ́ jọba Èkó ọba ní gàbàrò ọba ní àkíṣe mọ́yìn ọba ní ológun kùdèrè ọba ní àdélé àjọsùn ọba ní ẹ̀sìn lógún ọba ní ìdéwú ojú láàrin ọba ní ọba lolúwọlé ọba ní ọba làkìdóyè ọba ní sọkọ mòró fọlọ ọba ní ọba lòsùnmù ọba ní ọba lòyègàn ọba ní ọba lè ṣùgbà yìí ọba ní ọba balolu ọba ní ilé mọ́sẹ̀dẹ́kù ọba ní adéyìnmí ká òye kan ọba ní ìsúlẹ̀ àdìsá ọba ní
Hey, Charlie, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, Tolu?
I can't hear you too well, but I
They
think
will
it's
switch off
because
the
of...
music.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. I can't hear you because I think it's because of the device that I'm using. So my laptop, my wife's net here to the net here and cut it through and stole all my devices. So I'm saying that to say I don't have slides, but I have the paper happening. I was able to reconstruct the paper this morning, but I don't have slides.
Okay, Tolu, but I have a more important question for you. Is everything backed up?
Oh yeah, I had a longer version of the paper. The slides.
But of your life?
Sorry?
Like your thesis, your life in general?
Oh yeah, everything else is backed up.
Okay. Oh, but that is terrible.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm saying that only to say that I may, if I get a question, I may ask someone to repeat the question just so I'm able to hear clearly over the sound of the generator and the rainfall here where I am. And I don't have my headphones to even help things.
All right.
And then to also say that I unhappily don't have my slides, and I really, really worked hard on those slides throughout the night. But well, it is what it is.
Tolu, unbelievable.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's surreal.
But you've backed up. So so I once had my car stolen and it had all my paper documents in it, never got them back. And then the night my computer was stolen, I'd not backed up. And so I lost everything. So that's my most important question. Did you back up? And you did. But your phone, so you don't have phone now either?
No, I don't have a phone now.
You should be on the crisis panel.
Oh yeah. Yes, yes.
So who is our other speaker?
Should be a Samuel Adejube.
Yes. Yewande, can I ask you, let me do I say your surname correctly? Momo. So the same, Momo. So we have 3 attendees. Tolu, do you want to go first?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I can go first.
Just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go first, definitely.
What would you prefer that?
Sorry?
Would you prefer to go first?
No, it doesn't matter to me any which way. I can go first, I can go last, whatever.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me.
We are excited.
Oh.
So I know we've got
So-
some people in the audience, but tell me about yourself, Yewande.
Okay, my
So
name is Yewande
Uh-huh.
Momo. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my name is Yewande Momo. I finished from University of Lagos in 2021, 2011. I'm a writer, I'm a poet, but right now I work with an audit firm.
I
But
saw
in
that.
my, yes. So but whenever I'm free, I like to write, I like to express myself, and I like to mentor young ones. So I hope to, in the future, be a creative writer that writes didactic works.
So you're
And
not
I'm married with 3 kids.
okay. And you're not thinking of coming back into the academy.
I am thinking
You
of
are
coming back to the
also.
academy. Obviously, I am coming back to the academy.
All right, thank you. Samuel, hi, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon from here in Ibadan.
Have we met in person? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Very pleased to meet you. My name's Carly.
Yeah, I'm Samuel at Tejumola. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased. I've read a lot for you, and I'm glad to be here this afternoon.
I don't know what time we should start. Should we wait a few more minutes to see if more people join? Are you happy with that?
Yes, we could
Yes,
wait
I am.
5 some minutes.
Do you have slides, Samuel or Yewande?
Yes, please. I do now.
Do you want to try them out now?
Okay.
I have slides too.
All right, so Yewande, you go first. Let's see. Are you able to share?
Okay, I'm trying to share.
No?
Okay, I'll do just that now. Mm, Okay, did you get that?
Yes, something's appearing. Yep. So go into presentation mode. I think it's when you go from beginning, where you just see just the slide on the screen. Or set up slideshow, yes.
Okay. Did you get that?
That's it. That's exactly right.
Okay,
Great.
thank
So
you.
keep it
Thank
on
you
that
very
one. That's
much.
fantastic.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Samuel,
So-
should we try yours out?
Okay, I'll try mine. Okay, someone is sharing
So
slideshow.
Yewande, can you stop sharing? Stop
Okay,
sharing for
okay.
now,
She
so we can
stopped
also try out
sharing.
Samuel.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
so thank you.
Okay, let me share mine.
Great. And same thing also into slide mode. That's it. Brilliant. Thank you very much. That is great. So it looks like we've all set. Tolu, are you there? Shall we just go in the order that's on the program, or would you like to go first in case something goes wrong?
Yeah, we can go in the order that's on the program. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We'll do that. Very good. So I think maybe we shall begin, if everyone is ready.
Okay.
Perfect. So welcome everybody in the audience and welcome to the speakers on this panel, which is one of the initiatives of the Tejumola Olaniyan Legacy Project. It's a project of a group of students in the USA, most of them trained in Nigeria, to remember our colleague, Professor Tejumola Olaniyan. And this panel in which you are taking part today is called Arrest the Music, named after Professor Olaniyan's famous book, and its new directions in Fela studies. So we have 3 speakers today, and we have a little bit less than an hour and a half. So each speaker can speak for up to 20 minutes, and then we'll have some time for conversation. But please do not speak for more than 20 minutes. That is your absolute outer limit. So welcome to you, and thank you for being part of this panel here at Lagos Studies. Lagos Studies is a conference that is for and by young scholars. So I'm really happy to be here on a panel where not one of you I can call doctor yet, but all of you are working towards a goal. So the 3 speakers are Samuel Adejube, a PhD student at the University of Ibadan, Tolulope Akinwole, a PhD student at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Yewande Momo, who is a graduate of University of Lagos and is currently working in the industry and is also a poet and a mentor to young girls. So please let us go in the order that it is on the program. So we're going to start with Samuel Adejube with a paper entitled Soro Soke, Socio-Political Ambivalence in Fela's Suffering and Smiling and Zombie. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Professor Kadi, for the opportunity. I'm honored to be here. Okay, my name is Samuel Adejube. So I want to give a little background of myself. In the Institute of African Study, my discipline is ethnomusicology, or what we call African music. It's important I say that because I'm going to be engaging this issue from a mismatch of both musicology and then social phenomena that's happening, maybe social sciences discipline, something like that. So, so my title again is Sorosoke, Social Political Ambivalence in Fela, Suffering and Smiling and Zombie. Okay. By way of introduction, this article, or what I'm going to talk about today, I set out to analyze 2 Fela and Nicola Popote songs, and that is Suffering and Smiling with Zombie, to discuss the way musical elements that are used in those songs are used to represent political ambivalences, then using Tejumola Olaniyan's work. In 2004, Tejumola Olaniyan's work, Arrest the Music, Fela and his Rebel in Politics. He emphasized a lot about the relationship between Afrobeat music that was created by Fela and Nicola Popote, and how he used it to explain the post-colonial Lagos, or what I would like to call the cosmopolitan Lagos. Lagos being a cosmopolitan city where we have different peoples from different background, different culture, come together to live there, to make their hands intimate. And also, Tejumola Olaniyan also employs the idea of ambivalence, or what sometimes we call the antinomies, to investigate Fela music, his advocacy, and personality, which it can be called a dual nature or a dual side of Fela, which we're going to look at again. So it's also good for me to state here that Fela Anikulapo-Kuti was an archetypal Pan-African Protestant, which uses his music, and with lyrics that are repudiated with colonialism and some other things in general. Okay, so looking at that, I want to draw on Mindj's 2003 concept of musical figures. Like I said, my discipline is music, ethnomusicology. So I want to use musical figure, and this musical figure was used by Sanga a lot. Sanga is an ethnomusicologist in Tanzania, and then also used by Samuel 2015, where they picked about musical elements that are embedded in the music. Now, this time around, not just lyrics or word analysis alone, but this time around, they look at musical motifs, they look at the songs, they look at the instrumentation, and they use it to represent or to enact any social phenomenon or any identity that is happening around their area. So I'm going to be using that concept of musical figures, which sometimes called musical figurines. I'm going to juxtapose that idea with ethnography. Ethnography is a form of methodology where the methods are online, and especially I'm going to be looking at the works on Twitter. That's what I'm going to be using. Now, music as a sociopolitical commentator. Now, it's good to know that music culture and the society are closely interwoven. What we say in African music, for instance, we say African music is highly functional. That means there is no music for music itself, or we have little music for music itself. Every African music, almost all African music, let me be careful, are performing a function. It's either didactic, it's either it's performing a function of education, or it's trying to correct a social ill also. And so because of that, most African music, especially the popular music that are coming up now, they are agents of social crusade and mixed entertainment. Now, music is not just about entertainment. In the midst of that entertainment, most African music are also performing the work of social crusade, trying to correct something that is wrong with maybe an individual or the society or the government, which is the focus of this stuff, the government. And an example of that is Miriam Makeba, who is a South African female music artist who uses that agency of music to fight appetite. And then he was also involved in activism also. She was also involved with that activism. And then at the end of the day, she succeeded in making not just the music, not just being an international recognized music artist, but he made sure that that music also was an agency to fight back. And then we could see Nelson Mandela coming up from there. And definitely that now brings me back to my music artist that I'm engaging today, which is Fela. Fela was a political musician, like some people would call, and a lot of work have been done on Fela, and that's why we're here. Tejumola Olaniyan did a great job. Olaniyan also did a very fantastic job on Fela. So why am I picking Fela right now, or why did I decide to engage Fela also? Because what Fela seems to be like a prophet of our days, in the sense that what he was talking about then, we could see them play even in, Fela died a few years ago, but we could still see some of his work, some of his musical lyrics, some of his prophetic lyrics, if I might use that word, playing now as against the government injustice, and also not just against the government, but also to the people. And we're going to look at that in a bit. Now, Tejumola ambivalence of Fela and his music. Now, I know Tejumola did a lot about the antinomies. He's talked about Fela being the most controversial popular musician, and he engages Fela. He looks at how his music condemns colonial mentality, but at the same time, his music also approves and promotes some unethical counterculture, such as several things, unethical counterculture, and some of the things are what he said about his famous nightclub. There's a question about his famous nightclub, African Shrine, whether that place is a music haven or a music club, or probably is a ritualistic shrine, or maybe it's a haven for illegal drug use. People in Lagos will talk about African Shrine. That's several. You can go there and you can have any drugs, any drug abuse. You can use any illegal drug there because it's permitted there. Now, and looking at someone who condemns a lot about colonial mentality, and also not just about colonial mentality, but about the hegemony of the government in exacting pressure or in exacting malpractices on the people and not making things flow well. Looking at someone like that, he also created a famous nightclub that has a lot of havens of illegal drug use. So there's a question about that, and that's what Tejumola is talking about in his book and the antinomies of Fela's music. Also, we can look at Fela as a very staunch anti-Christian and Muslim, because he sees them as foreign religions, not just Christianity, but also Muslim. He sees them as foreign religion. But at the same time, he himself is a nativist of a religion. So whether it is Christianity, Islam, or the traditional religion that Fela practices, it is both something questionable, something that we have to look at also, since I'm looking at the ambivalence on the antinomies. Also, again, Fela, in the bid to condemn colonial mentality, decided that his language of performance is not going to be a pure English or British English or American English, but instead the Nigerian pidgin. But the question now begs that if at the same time you are condemning colonial mentality and then you're using Nigerian pidgin, what about his music Afrobeat that is actually a mismatch or prominently from the jazz, which is Western? We have to look at that Western music, Western instruments used in Fela music, like the saxophone, the keyboard, the trap set or the drum set. Yes, although Fela tried to mismatch it with some African musical instrument also, but there were you could count few African musical instruments in Fela's performance. It's mainly Western instruments, and Fela himself being a saxophonist, bassist, a keyboard player also. So that begs the question of that antinomies also. It also established the ambivalences in Fela's music. Now going by that, let me start to analyze the song. Zombie was released in 1976. Probably maybe because I'm from the music, I just sing it. Zombie, oh, zombie. Zombie no go unless you tell them to go. Zombie no go stop unless you tell them to stop. Zombie, tell them to go. No break, no sense. Zombie was created. Many people believe that Zombie was created to criticize the military because it was composed in 1976, which it was an incident that happened in Kalakuta house. That's the house of Fela, where the army or the military invaded his house, and then they injured Fela, and then his mother passed away because of that process. So Zombie looks like a music composition to criticize that event or to attack the military disposition of attacking his house. All right, so I think I'll move. All right, so and at the same time, but instead of but describing Fela Zombie as an attack on the military alone, we limit his message to a specific African context. Now, this is what I'm trying to look at. Zombie was released in 1970s, but you could see in the Sorosoke event, you could see Zombie being used as an hashtag on Twitter, even in 2020 and the 2021. If you look at the tweets, you have 2021 June 4, Zombie was used. The same Zombie Sorosoke youth that were shouting cyber in 2015, how market. We warn you about the general. Now look at this. Now, Sorosoke, let me just talk a little about Sorosoke. Sorosoke is a Yoruba expression which literally means speak out loud. Sorosoke was used a lot during the NSAS protest, although there is a controversy around Sorosoke right now because of the work of Trish Lawrence, who some Nigerians are signing petition to remove her as the author of the phrase. I would say Sorosoke is a word that has existed in Yoruba before now, but it came into prominence in 2020 during the NSAS. And why am I using the word Sorosoke? Now you can see the tweet that I have here. Let me just go to this first one. It said, protest because I don't want to stay silent and die silent. Mo fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ sókè nítorí I am a Sorosoke generation and not a lazy Nigerian youth. Now, Sorosoke could be used. I'm trying to look at the context, the usage of Sorosoke, where it was used by youth to speak out to the injustice, to the not just to end SARS or end police brutality alone, but to also end bad government. So now the youth are not just, although it started from NSAS, but they are not just using Sorosoke as NSAS alone. In 2021, Sorosoke also is being used. And we could see that they are actually crying, the youth are crying out loud that they don't want to suffer alone and be smiling like Fela talks about. But instead, they want to talk about they want to take an active step and action in the country's liberation from oppression. Now, I actually focus on the B part of suffering and smiling, which talks about every day, my people, they inside about suffering and smiling. It's actually talk about the day-to-day lived experience of Lagosians. They wake up early in the morning, go to the street, they are head up by hold-ups, by traffic jams, and then they get back home, there's no electricity for them. And so now, but the question now falls that what I'm asking now, what I'm looking at in the ambivalence is that the same youth that are trying to Sorosoke or to speak out loud are also being silent because they are member of one political party or the other. Now, there's a tweet here now that I'm looking at. This tweet said, all the youths that collected money to vote today in Ekiti are on Twitter. Sorosoke my foot. Now, this person is trying to say that, look, despite the fact of the shout, of the crying out of the youth, in the sense that they are Sorosoke or they want to speak against the bad government, they still go behind to collect money for voting. They still go behind to follow their political godfather or godfatherism. They still do that. And they will still come to Twitter also to talk about Sorosoke or end SARS or end police brutality or end bad governance. But this same youth will still go back to go to their godfather. And perhaps those politicians are only prying or leveraging on the poverty level of the masses. Because what they do most times, like this tweet that I was looking at, he said they collected money. And if you doing that, this is just last week, Saturday, during the Ekiti's gubernatorial election. Now, I'm also being careful in this work not to mention any political party or to talk down on any political party. I'm trying to balance it there, but I'm just trying to engage the ambivalence of the youth in crying out on Twitter, on social media against bad government, but at the same time are going behind to, thank you so much, are going behind to engage the politician. Like almost every political party in Nigeria, they have a youth leader and they have youth wings. And these same people will join those youth on Twitter to talk about Sorosoke or about ending the police brutality or ending bad governance. But these same youth are on the salary scheme of these political parties. And while they are on Twitter to talk against the bad governance, they are also offline to collect money. And that will take me back to what Fela talked about, suffering and smiling. That look, despite the fact that these people are suffering, but they are still smiling. And then Afolanyo and Falola book in this 2022, when they engage Fela, they look at it that, look, the suffering and smiling part is for youth not to suffer alone, rather take active step and action in their country's liberation from oppression. Now, but I didn't have any conclusion here. That's why I borrowed a term that I stole from my supervisor. He said discussion continues. Now, the question now is, are the Sorosoke youth ready? Or is it still a narrative of suffering and smiling? What I was saying that as the youth, now they are prying on it. Are we ready to actually Sorosoke indeed? Or, like Fela said, do we still want to go back to that narrative of shuffling and smiling? Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for that, and also for the reference to the topical issues around the Sorosoke generation name. And we know also that there's a recent edited book that's come out by Nigerian scholars, bringing together different Nigerian voices, speaking up, speaking loudly in that book. I don't know whether you have a copy of that book on your desk that you could show, Samuel Adejube. No.
No, no.
All right. I also don't have one.
I have
Sorry.
a soft copy, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We are going to move on, and we're going to take questions at the end, if that's all right. So we'll have all three speakers and then have questions at the end. So our second speaker is Tolulope Akinwole. Please, whenever you are ready, do go ahead.
So thank you so much, Dr. Kutsel, for introducing this panel, and thank you everyone for being here. I first apologize that you can't see my face, and that's because the device I'm using now doubles as backup for my reading. I also apologize for the absence of slides. It wasn't my plan, but I will be happy to answer any questions that comes up as a result of the regarding clarifying some of the points that I make in this presentation. But I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
We can hear you clearly.
All right, thank you. So I'll go right ahead to my presentation, which I have titled, If Thuggery Had a Soundtrack, Proximate Thuggery and Popular Poetics in Lagos. In this paper, I meditate on thuggery with the aim of challenging the binarity of thought that produces it and with which it is received as a marker of subjectivity. The argument I make here is that thuggery is ubiquitous, and in Lagos, as easily is the case everywhere else. It is the means by which inhabitants of that megacity assert their citizenship, structure their space, and perform their own notions of democracy. In the sense that it is used in many post-colonial African cities, the word thug refers to a belligerent person or a loafer who is known to be unemployed and therefore predisposed to crime. In Lagos, the popular terms that best describes this often male figure are area boy and tout. The term best used in Accra, Ghana is kobolo. According to Kwesing, it is a word that, quotes, combines the meanings of good-for-nothing rascal and mischief maker, and sometimes incorporates the features of the petty criminal, end quote. But of course, these terms focus on the exhibition of criminal tendencies without noting the social situation which nurtures such tendencies. Such a misapprehension of thuggery pays undue attention to spectacular performances of dissent and survival gimmicks of those surface representations of thuggery, and therefore do not account for the widespread nature of thuggery as a response to crisis. I depart, therefore, from such readings of thuggery in political and social science research. I lean instead towards a deconstructive analysis of thuggery that embraces narrativity as method of investigation. Here, I redefine thuggery as a self-cultivated social alertness that manifests as readiness to antagonize established structures deemed inimical to one's efforts at survival, and to interrupt the social machinery by which socio-spatial crises are perpetuated. Paradoxically, by the exact same token of this will to interrupt the social machinery of crisis, thuggery is often co-opted by the very machinery that it seeks to subvert. Proximate thuggery refers to this paradoxical tendency of thuggery to rework its agenda and in turn multiply itself, turning up in unexpected spaces. In situations where citizens struggle for access to scarce resources and otherwise amicable social interactions are always on the brink of descending into altercations, the will to thuggery lurks underneath facades of respectability. This is the situation that I denote as proximate thuggery. Keen attention to all strata of the post-colonial African city will show that thuggery is performed widely by the ruler and the ruled, by the respectable and the rascally. For evidence in this paper, I turn to a broad analysis of the musical and bodily performance of Fela Kuti, the Afrobeat maestro, to establish thuggery as a means by which inhabitants of Lagos structure their space. Now I proceed to offer an analysis of Fela's proximate thuggery. If thuggery, as conceived herein, had a soundtrack, Fela's music provides it. The sonic features of Fela's musical art project a spirit at pains to point out all that is wrong with its social space and place. Tejumola Olaniyan describes Fela's instrumental sound as composed of, quote, aggressive blaring horns and deeply pulsating drums, expressing an unmistakable belligerence that is simultaneously mere city braggadocio and substantive accumulation of resentments and frustrations of the lowly as they scrape and scream at the bottom of the city hierarchy, end quote. It is very well known that the aggression detectable in Fela's music through the ensemble of trumpets, trombones, and saxophones, tempered by sundry other musical instruments, responds directly to the socio-spatial context of his art. Olaniyan offers the phrase post-colonial incredible for describing the social situation that served as a backdrop to Fela's music. By the phrase, Olaniyan gestures at the condition in which the post-colony teeters precariously on the verge of crisis, but does not quite descend into crisis. In Olaniyan's deployment of the phrase, the incredible, the utterly improbable and unbelievable is first the characteristic of the post-colonial African milieu, structured by a system unknowable to itself, troubled by the crisis of resource distribution and subtended by a confusion of brute force for power. Fela's own many personal encounters with the brute force of the government of his time are recounted too often that to repeat them here risks dulling the brilliant halo that garlands his afterlife. It is a system that declines to acknowledge its shortcoming and rather parades an inanity that constructs it as incredible, untrustworthy to its citizenry, and use an unbelievably huge archive of tragedy. A tragic system, quote, signally marked by a great variety of morbid symptoms, and that is from Olaniyan, end quote. Fela's art stages a robust response to this situation. First at the level of musical performance and then at the level of bodily performance. His musical response to crisis as norm to the post-colonial incredible, which took on a particularly charged political energy from the 1970s until his death, has been the subject of many a paragraph. For my reading of it anew here, I resort to Black critical theory, which is fitting, for Fela's radical artistic ideology is credited to his encounter with the Black rights movement during his tour in the United States. My brief analysis therefore relies on Nathaniel McKee's literary rumination on birth. In his lecture entitled Breath and Precarity, a response to the tragedy of Eric Garner's state-sanctioned murder in the United States, McKee provides a rich theory of Black breath, music, and being. To put McKee's submission simply, Black music is a creative expression at once accentuating the breathlessness and breathfulness of the Black body. It provides vibrant evidence of the vitality of the Black body and being. It is by reason of this affordance of Black music that one would agree with McKee that Black creative expression, quote, opens a space for reflection, a meditative space that bears critically on the precarious and predatory world in which its auditors and its producers find themselves, end quote. McKee further notes two forms of breath use in music and poetry. First is the asthmatic use of breath, best represented by caesura, and second is circular breathing. While the former indicates a form of dark prolepsis foretelling imminent loss of breath, the latter basks in the triumph of breathfulness, in the ability to master breath and control its use. Employed by jazz musicians, circular breathing is both an agonistic transaction as well as a triumphalist one. Mackey puts it gracefully, quote, jazz recourse to secular breathing thus animates a mixed messaging traffic, a clandestine circulation of breath rotating between utopian intimations of assured, everlasting pneumatic amenity and a sirening alarm at the precarity to which breath, especially Black breath, is subject. Triumphalist and agonistic both, end quote. This meditation on the precarity of life applies to Fela's music. His very response to his immediate and remote socio-political milieu, exemplified by the lyrics of Suffering and Smiling and Identity, respectively, their examples. I am sorry. Fela's musical art may not be characterized as structured by an asthmatic use of breath, akin to being in the throes of asphyxiation. As a public performer, he was only interested in capitulating to his own government, which relentlessly vilified him. As is well known, the military government authorized unknown soldiers to ransack his residence in 1977, throw down his mother, Olufunmilayo Ransome-Kuti, Nigeria's foremost feminist and political activist, from the second floor of a two-story building. Fela's graphy vocal presentation, together with the saxophone, his choice instrument, indicate the triumphalist notion of Black breath that Mackey writes about. Those familiar with the more obvious examples of thuggery in Nigeria associate thugs with vocal depth, manifesting as gruffy or even raspy. His throaty singing combines well with his horn instrument to exemplify this triumphalist mode of breath use. Although Fela played many instruments well, he was often to be seen on stage pumping air into his saxophone away from an immobile keyboard, which he played occasionally. This preference for the pulmonary manipulation of air rather than ambidextrous manipulation of a musical device, which agitates air less obviously, all the more projects the braggadocio of Fela's music. But more importantly, his preoccupation with breathing. Take, for instance, Fela's Suffering and Smiling. The opening sonic sequence of the track is a sumptuous ensemble of instrumental sounds, bass guitar, rich soft drum beats, horns, and then Fela's own saxophone. The hypnotic rhythm degenerated extends for over 9 minutes before the musician's own voice comes on, and it must have been sustained by circular breathing, for it is well known that his music is heavily accented by jazz. If anything further shows that circular breathing is the heart of his music, it is his alternation between singing and speaking. This exertion of breath through his musical instruments and through singing and speaking must surely be enervating. Paradoxically, this very triumphalism of circular breathing is at once, according to Mackey, quote, a boastful exulting breath and a dystopian struggle for breath. In this reading of Fela's art as typifying proximate thuggery, breath stands for life or living broadly considered. In this sense, to breathe is to be able to express the exuberance of being human, to be free from indignities, to have access to all the accoutrements of the modern Nigerian that the modern Nigerian state promises but fails woefully to deliver. To breathe is to be free from state-sponsored terror, a luxury that Fela did not enjoy. Twice the military government besieged his residence and displaced members of his household. This provides the background for Fela's thuggish artistry. Now, Fela's thuggery was, now to Fela's bodily performance of thuggery. Yes, Fela's thuggery is as embodied as it is artistic. Bared upper body, a cigar or a wrap of marijuana dangling from his mouth or head between index and middle fingers, white face paint smeared across forehead, nose, and chin, and lower limbs tucked in tight-fitting trousers, or even scantily clad in a pair of underpants. Fela's bodily stage presence openly complements his irreverent art, insofar as thuggery, at least in its general understanding, contrasts respectability. Fela aligns with the images of thuggery, rather than that of respectability. The Yoruba cultural group to which Fela belonged and whose folk art undergirded his music do not hold respectability lightly. As Adeleke Adeko painstaking cultural analysis in Arts of Being Yoruba demonstrates, self-presentation is central to Yoruba conception of social acceptability. Although respectability among the Yoruba ultimately manifests in one's performing one's social and communal duty for the spiritual sustenance of one's community, and the strike and the shirking of such duties could have tragic consequences, as is the case with LSA and Wole Soyinka's death and the king's husband. Its immediate exhibition is both corporeal and sartorial. Adieko proffers a few Yoruba sayings that support this assertion. Two of them, Irini Sini Isonilojo. Adieko's translation is, how one is viewed circumscribes the esteem one garners. And Asholanki Akiniya. Again, Adieko translates it as, verbal pleasantries acknowledge the clothing and not the person. Fela's bodily presentation negates both of these modes of self-presentation. Its scantily clad, lanky form on stage projects recalcitrant waywardness, that which is associated with the area boy, the urban figure dwelt upon by the term thuggery. Fela expectedly attracted characters that characters deemed antisocial and even criminal. And as the area boy will be expected to be in possession of a weapon to fight for himself against the innumerable social forces that he is up against, so does Fela declare music as his own weapon. That makes sense in light of Nathalie Marquis' reading of Black music as, quote, a prosthetic device, end quote. Music is Fela's own bodily extension that hurts those in power and therefore challenges their excesses. He acknowledged that each successive government portrayed him as a common thug, but they themselves were the thugs. In Mr. Grammatical logicalizationalism is the boss. Fela asserts that the wannabe ruler who speaks and writes jaw-breaking in quoting, then be delinquent. Who be delinquent? The Oyinbo talk are delinquent. Who be delinquent? It no be me. Translated. They are delinquent. Who is delinquent? The talker of proper English is delinquent. Who is delinquent? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tolulope Akinwole. Absolutely stunning. And listening to you, I can also hear how extremely gendered this thuggery soundtrack is. But I mean, I could talk until tomorrow about the interesting things you raised. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. And we are sorry that you couldn't show your slides. Our next speaker is Yewande Momo. Please go ahead and share your talk. Her title references the same track, Suffering and Smiling to Fela, or Shuffering and Smiling to Fela, of minimal pairs and echoes of Fela in the everyday. You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Once again, my name is Yewande Momo. I don't know if you can see this.
At the moment, we cannot see your slides.
Oh.
So share again, like when we practiced at the beginning.
Okay. Did you get that?
Not yet.
Oh. Did you get that now?
Not yet.
Oh. What's happening?
At least we know we've done it once. We should be able to reproduce it.
Can't get the slide. Okay.
So in the meantime, while you suffer, I will smile.
Oh. I'm trying to share this. Okay.
Yes, something's happening.
Okay. So
All
let
right.
me
So
increase
again, go
that
to full
now.
slide, maximize slide. Perfect.
Okay.
Very professional.
Thank you.
Off you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Yewande Momo, and I'm a Nigerian, a Lagosian. So when I speak, when I write because I experience everything that I've spoken or written about. The topic is before me is response to the work of late Professor Tejumola Olaniyan's Arrest the Music, New Directions in Fela Studies. And my topic is shuffling and shuffling to Fela and the continuous echoes of Fela in Nigeria. So we're going to look at the background to my study. This paper argues that the body of Fela's work reveals that Nigeria since post-colonial epoch roam in circles. We've seen writers that have written about Nigeria, that have written about African and the Black man, how they suffered because every African
Your voice is buffering a little bit.
story
We are struggling a little bit to hear you. Sorry about that, audience. We will see if we can get her back in. There are many Fela jokes one can make. Of course, it's the network. But we can make jokes about zombie. We can make jokes about suffering. There's a lot going on. Let's hope we can get our speaker back. So while we are waiting, because we cannot know for sure that we will get her back, perhaps we can start a conversation. In the first place, I think what I will do is to invite the two speakers who are present. Gents, if you want to respond to each other's work, it's clearly the work is cousins to each other. So if one of you has a response to the work of the other, you are welcome to use this time now to engage in conversation. Please unmute yourself if you have something to say.
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite interested in the ethnomusicology.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think I'll just pause.
I'm sorry.
Tolu, I think now that we have Yewande back, I'm going to mute you. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's really raining here, and so the network is not nice.
Of course, I know.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you very well. Yes.
Okay.
You want
Should
to
I
share
start from? Yes.
You can start from the middle of your first page of your slides.
Okay. Is this fine?
We are not seeing the slides yet. We'll have to go through that whole wahala again. Sorry.
No.
On repeat. Wahala on repeat.
Can you see the slide now?
Not yet. We will be sure to alert you the minute it appears. Thank you for being so patient. It's hard not to lose one's temper, but you are just staying professional. Not yet.
Share slide, share slide,
Please.
share slide, share slide.
Have you found the page?
Yes, I'm trying
Okay.
to. Share slide.
Can you see at the bottom, there's a green thing with an arrow that says share screen. At the bottom of the screen, in the middle of your computer screen, right at the bottom.
Yes, I've clicked the button.
Share screen.
Share
Yes,
screen.
it's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
Okay.
Good, good. So take us to slide number 2.
Slide number 2.
The one, yep, exactly.
If I try to maximize it, I'll lose this again. I'm trying to be careful.
So,
So
please go ahead.
okay. So I said in this paper, I argue that the body of Fela's work revealed that Nigerians since the epoch of post-colonial era, Nigerians have been roaming in circles. And I want to own this topic. That's why I said shuffling. You know, the actual topic for is the Fela wrote was suffering and smiling. So, but I don't want to say smiling. I want to say shuffling. So I've considered Olaniyan's insightful Arrest the Music and some of the songs that he has chosen from Fela's work to buttress the fact that Nigerians walk aimlessly without direction. Can you hear me? Okay, so I have chosen Parabolation, Shuffling and Smiling, and Original Sufferhead as my area of concentration. So on persistent occasions, I've cited in the street cases of Nigerians and cantankerous hoodlums in Nigeria. They are either male or female. I'm trying to look at the genesis, the reason why I've written this paper. So you see them, they are thugs, they are not responsible, and they are jobless youths. Some of them are old adults, and the reason why they've gone into aimlessly walking here and there is because there's nothing for them to do. They've given up on Nigeria, and then they accepted their fate at anything that Nigeria brings to them. So, sorry, my battery is low. So let's move to the next one. So we have two categories of the touts that I'm talking about. We have the Omoniles, they are popularly called in Lagos, the land grabbers, and then we have the Agberos. So the Omoliles are those that you see in the outskirts of towns where anyone that buys land, they make sure that they hijack the land, they make sure that they play tantrums. They don't have works that they do. All they do is make sure those that are working, they tax them, and they make sure that they pay ransom. If they do not pay ransom, they can covet the land, they can do sort of things. Some people even say that they can go the spiritual way so that people will succumb to them. So when I look at everything that is going on in Nigeria, you look at the government, you look at the social ills, you look at the suffering, you look at the masses and what they've experienced and what they are experiencing in the present government, I decided to look at the word shuffling, because shuffling, when you look at the shuffling, you look at the dictionary meaning of it. I'm trying to meet up with my time. So the dictionary meaning of shuffling is to walk slowly without lifting your leg from the ground. So he explains one's purposeful acting out his original intention for fear of what the moral holds. For instance, when you slow down because you don't know what is coming to you, you delay a little bit because you're afraid of what tomorrow holds. And that's the situation where you find Nigerians. It has come to that because of everything that's happened. They've accepted their fate and they just want to shuffle. They just want to hold back. They just want to relent a little bit and just accept whatever comes to them. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Shuffling, okay, shuffling can be called absolute play for time, an entire time wasting. That's my definition. When you waste time, which might possibly lead to more critical outcome. You know, when you delay a thing, when you're afraid to take the bold step, you will face more challenges than ever. So Nigerians, I'm trying to look at Nigerians trying to withdraw back. Nigerians trying to say, oh, we are afraid of taking these steps. We don't want to do this because for those that have done it in the past, we know the consequence that they face. So they are left with the recent challenges to just endure in the suffering and live in it and die in it. So I refer to waste of time as being synonymous with play for time, because when you say you want to delay, you are trying to play tricks. You're trying to play tricks. So in this regard, I've looked, like I said earlier, I've looked at Fela's works. I considered Shuffling and Smiling, Original Sufferhead, and Parabolator. And when you look at Arrest the Music, which Olaniyan has written, I've looked at what Olaniyan termed by saying parambulator. What does it mean to parabolate? He says the word is taken from par and ambulate, which means to walk aimlessly.
Yewande, you can shuffle
Yes,
a bit
please.
more. You don't have to race. You can shuffle.
Okay. Okay. Nigeria was, you know, Nigeria's watchword is unity and faith, peace and progress. I'm trying to buttress the fact that Nigerians are not even living in unity, are not enjoying peace, they are not enjoying progress. And so Fela, the way he always comes out, people always term him as someone that has negatively influenced the society because of his works. So because he's braggadocio, the way he acts, the way he radically talks about the government, the way he satirizes the economy, is not just to bully the economy, is a way of showing his anger because he has been part of the society. He has experienced it. Like I said earlier, everyone has a story to tell as a Lagosian and as a Nigerian. So the best thing we do is to shuffle, is to hide under the fact that when we don't want to open ourselves, when we don't want to reveal our true essence of who we are, to make a change. You know, when you confront the circumstances before you, the solution comes out. But that's what Nigerians don't want to do. They are satisfied with the position that they have. They are satisfied with the suffering, and they go there and here. So when I look at Go Slow that Fela wrote, I've looked at it as Fela liking the song to Nigeria's institution, the government institution, the prison institution, the government that is supposed to cater for the people, the government that is supposed to be rule of law where everybody has a say, but everyone doesn't have a say. Even the workers themselves in the government, they don't have a say. They are based on what the government wants them to do, and everybody is just silent, following like a zombie. They can't talk. That's why I said they shuffle. And because they shuffle, there is no essence to where they want to get to. They are limited in what they are to where they are going to. When we look at, I've said this, The Nigerian polity, after all, shows that the perambulating, aimless, lethargic disposition of a Nigerian state is made by a citizen. And when Fela sang on original Sufferhead, he paired it with Go Slow and figured out the similitude in the effects of the increase in the standard of living. Because right from where Fela has been singing his songs, he has been reflecting the Nigerian society, still reflecting the society. That's what is reflected in the everyday Nigeria, because in the past we've been suffering, we are still suffering, and of course in the future we will definitely suffer if we did not make the move. So Fela's cry, his shout, his blab, and radical behavior illustrated in all his songs speak of the crisis of the Black world, in which Nigeria is a major focus. Because he's a Nigerian, he has experiences. We all know the story that happened to him and how he spoke. He was imprisoned, and that when he came out, nobody wants to support him. So he has not kept quiet. He did not keep quiet, and his voice is still heard in the music of Nigeria today, in the lives of the people of today, in the Nigerian lives today, and people do not want to learn. Can you hear me? So Fela, in a wise manner, unapologetically exposes the exploitative behavior. It takes a courage to do that. Most people don't want to talk. Most people don't want to speak their mind because they're afraid. I can remember the NSAS protest then. People were clamoring for change, and it was time for people to come out. I can remember then, I think I was pregnant. I went out and everybody was shouting, "Why will you go out? You're pregnant. If this happens." But this is my people. I'm a part of the suffering. I'm suffering as well. I endured it, and I must also speak. But everybody is afraid because of the near effect of the result of speaking could lead to death because of the kind of government that we have. You know, the government is not peaceful. The government is not fair. And even when you want to judge, it is not based on, it's not a government for the people. It's not for the people. It's government for the governmental, for the people of high classes. And then the people of the low classes are left to keep quiet, to accept whatever comes their way. So Fela's fight and losing tongue is to expose the shit of the government, and in the end, make a defeatable fact out of what he has said. I cited that from Arrest the Music in page 76, and we see references from Fela's past works and past lectures, how he has been an agent of change, trying to bring the people together. He's not someone that separates the people. He brings them together. He wants unity because he's tired of hardship. He's tired of when people are enslaved. He likes to fight for people's rights, which the government doesn't want. So today I find it interesting to also study or reflect Fela's works in the life of other upcoming artists. You find out that his son is even reflected in his works. You can look at Democracy here. The song Democracy, which reflects the effects of Nigerian shuffling. You know, when you shuffle, you move here and there. You don't have a particular place you're going to. And then when you're suffering, you shuffle. By the time you shuffle, you move here and there, to and fro, here and there, to and fro. And before you know it, the person doesn't know what he's doing. He loses his mind and it becomes maddening. So he's trying to say, instead of democracy, in Nigeria, we have democracy. So democracy is what the government has limited us to. We also have in like mind the guy that wrote the popular artist, Burna Boy. They call him Burna Boy. He wrote Monsters You Made. And Nigeria has made monsters out of the citizens that have been trampled upon, the bruised citizens. So when people come out radical, they say they are monsters. And it says, okay, it's the government that has made us monsters. And now we are monsters, you have to live with us. So what do we have in place of supposed peaceful rule in Nigeria? We have an anarchical rule. We have a victimized masses. And every day, over and over, they have cried. They are tired of crying. Every day they go out, they
I don't know if you can hear me, but you have frozen. I'm sorry about that. It is particularly a pity to freeze in the middle of such a spirited and characterful presentation. It will be hard for the speaker to regain her, to start again from there. But what I think, I don't quite know what we should do. Yes, no, she's gone again. So I think for now, I know when she comes back, she'll want to go back into full flow. But maybe, let's give it a minute. The panel is very mimetic of all the things you are talking about. Infrastructure, the many challenges that face Nigerians in the everyday. Tolu, did you want to say something? Please go ahead, Tolu, if you want.
No, I just wanted everyone else to see my face now that we're not predicting anything.
So maybe now, I think we don't know if Yewande is going to be able to come back. So maybe if I will give you each the opportunity to ask each other a question or to comment, and then I will invite the audience to type questions in the chat box, please. So Tolu Lope and Samuel, if you have something you want to discuss with each other, please go ahead while we wait for the audience to make some comments and questions.
Yeah, so I was going to say that I found Samuel's presentation quite interesting, and I am delighted. I think I may have lost you at some point, and I hope we're good.
We can hear you now.
Okay, so yes, I was saying that I am delighted that Samuel is a musicologist as well. So I really am interested in knowing what you think, Samuel, of the musical temperament of Fela's work. It may be difficult to offer one that that fits the entire oeuvre, but what are those immediate features of his music that speak to the Sorosoke moment, right? Not just, I mean, yeah, it's I know that his works continue to be relevant in the Nigerian social state today, but particularly important to me is the Sorosoke moment, because of course we know that Fela's image was resuscitated and circulated throughout the protests. So I'm really dying to hear how you connect his music to all of this in terms of its formalist features.
Okay, if I actually understand what you're saying, how Fela music, this time around the musical elements, since you want me to talk from the ethnomusicological angle. For instance, if you take Zombie, for instance, like I love the fact that when you're explaining the shuffling and smiling, I guess, you're talking about the instrumentation that started for almost 9 minutes before the vocals were introduced. So if you pick Zombie, for instance, the instrumentation in Zombie looks like a matching sound. When we have, Zombie is not just like the movies of zombies that we watch. No, it actually resembles when armies or the military or the paramilitary are marching left, right, center, left, right, center. But because Fela is more of a Pan-Africanist, so there is this element of Africanism that was brought into the instrumentation. But at the same time, it wasn't an Afrobeat where you need to dance or when you need to show your body and dance, but because it was trying to talk about the military, the zombie, and at some point, if you watch the video, because I saw the video, you will see like there are three dancers that were dancing, and they were trying to give that left, right attention. So the instrumentation was more of a military march band instrumentation that speaks to the fact that Zombie is not just a song for you to it's not just a song for you that entertains you. Like I said, the African music is predominantly functional, that every aspect of the melody, the instrumentation, the harmony, they were deliberate as in speaking to what is happening. So if I pick Zombie and I look at that first instrumentation, they are deliberate to let you know that this is talking about the marching song. You know, when we're in secondary school, we march also. So it's talking about that. And then you could actually link it and say, okay. It's talking about Zombie. It's talking about people who act, who live a regimented life, who just move left, right, center, and they move the way. So that's, and then if you look at it also, if you want to compare with today's people who call themselves African resurrected Fela, like the Burna Boy, the Whiskey, they really don't understand that instrumentation part. What they want to do with their music is to dance and also to send a message, but not like, and like you said, that Fela has a very highly jazz element in his music. We have several, you know, that jazz factors cannot be removed from it. So, but today's African Fela in quotes, like the Burna Boy, they really don't understand what Fela was trying to do with music there. So that's the part that I can answer. I don't know whether I've been able to answer the question. It's just picking those elements, the harmony, the melody, you know, trying to look at it like, okay, apart from if I say the keys in this, or is a tonal center, the harmony is a block harmony or African polyphony. Apart from that, let me also look at the deliberate effort Fela put into that instrumentation to pass his message before the vocals or the lyrics come into play to really talk about it.
I think this is a very welcome focus because so much scholarship is on the lyrics of music, just doing a sort of discourse analysis of the lyrics. So I think this, you know, you are all talking about the body, you are talking about breath, you are talking about method, you are talking about formal musicological elements. Yewande, do you want to just do your conclusion? 2 minutes to just conclude your paper. Welcome back.
Thank you. I apologize for
Please.
the break in transmission. I apologize. So I have just like 4 slides to go.
Let's not do all 4 of them, because then there will not be time for questions. If you can just wrap up in 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, so I want to end up by saying that Fela, the Black African,
I'm so sorry.
Is it my network? Okay, sorry.
So I think the rest of us are here. I think we just have to carry on. She may not come back. It's like the Nigerian government is right in the room, right? The effects of their governance are spread over us like a fog. I'm really sorry about malfunction again. So just to go back to my comment, I'm really delighted with this, with the kind of attention that you are giving Fela's music and Fela's legacy. I think Professor Olaniyan would have enjoyed this panel very much. Samuel, did you want to say something to Tolu, or are you happy to move to the audience now?
Okay, I think I can say something. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for the time. I want to look at Togri also. So when I look at Togri, in your presentation, I don't know if you could look at the socio-economical value that Togri is presenting today. Like when Yewande was talking, he said no job, but can we really say no job, especially when we look at what Fela was talking about when he talks about the government? The government hired these people, this Togri that we're talking about, these talks, And then they also contribute to the social political growth this time around. And they get enough money, even money that some people in the interior villages don't have. For instance, we could talk about the annual TW chairmans, how they fight for that post. And if the economic value is not there, I don't think we could actually just talk about it in the negative side. So I'm looking at whether you consider that. Then also look at music now. Like I said, in popular music culture right now, where people want to claim their Fela. Like for instance, this guy, Zazu Portable, this Portable Zazu guy. Most people complain about him being a talk, but some people still patronize his music. So I don't know whether you consider that.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for those points. So first is that I'm not casting Togri as either positive or negative. To start there is actually to have failed woefully in apprehending even a much significant, much cogent issue, right? And this presentation is actually part of a larger work in which I meditated on 3 cases like that, drawing from media, drawing from music, and that's a Fela portion of it, and then drawing from literature, where I read a character in Chibun, what's her name? Onozo's Welcome to Lagos has a character that helps that reading. But I'm not concerned about casting Thuggery as positive or negative. I'm rather concerned in unearthing what is packed into that term. When we say thuggery, what do we not say? What do we avoid when we call people thugs? And what does that imply? And in unpacking it, how do we better understand how everyday people respond to the inadequacies or the unavailability of resources that they have to deal with every day. In fact, my point is that every one of us is a potential thug when situation calls for that from all of us, which is why I say that proximity thuggery is the phenomenon in which thuggery shows up among the respectable and among the rascally. So that to that, and yes, interestingly, I settled on this topic actually by meditating on Zazu, the song. I was captivated by it, both by the bodily presentation of the artist, Portable. He's unclad, at least from top to waist, and that to me gestured back to Fela. And then there are moments where also there's a point in which another musical character reenacts Sani Abacha for us, and you just can't avoid putting 2 and 2 together. So yeah, in a much larger work, I am bringing all of these things together. So thank you for your question.
Can I ask you two gents, is this part of your PhD project for both of you? Samuel, can you tell us a little bit more about your PhD project?
All right, my PhD project is on Lagos cosmopolitan life. Also, it's also a part of it. Just that in my PhD thesis, I'm using Lagbaja rather than Fela. And Lagbaja can be a diplomatic Fela, what I tie to a diplomatic Fela. Lagbaja is not like Fela. Fela could be direct, but Lagbaja is more diplomatic compared to Fela. But at the same time, I'm also engaging this social political scene as much as the cosmopolitan life of Lagos, the everyday life, lived experience, which unfortunately for me also, Fela also and Lagbaja, they did a little song together in one of the album of Fela called Aban. So definitely I'm engaging. But Lagbaja is my core artist for my PhD thesis.
Samuel, would you please read the Q&A? There's a question for you there.
True.
Please go ahead, Tolu. We can see you possibly speaking, Tolu. Are you saying something? You are muted.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yes, this is a very, very early draft of a chapter in my dissertation, in which I am thinking through the notion of thuggery, thinking with the Admiral figure, the bus park notions of thuggery. And so, yeah, this is part of a much latter of my research.
I think it's very exciting to have work in progress, PhD work in progress being presented at the conference. There are not many conferences where one can do this. Let me see if there's another question from Torsten Geborgi. Thank you so much for these rich and provocative presentations. Oh, it's quite long, the questions. It's probably best if you read it on the screen if you are able. Tolu, does your screen allow you to read the questions? There's a question for each one of you.
Okay, can I go ahead and answer mine?
Please.
All right, I think Fela Ayodele is asking what are the effects of social media trends on the source? Okay, youth livelihood to suffer and smile. The school of thought felt many youth source, okay, join the protest or obedience. I understand that obedience, like a zombie, just because that's what Twitter influencers are doing. Yeah, I could support this, but like I said, what actually pushed my interest in Olaniyan's Tejumola's work was the antinomies he used in describing Fela. When you look at antinomies, it talks about the complexity of trying to identify somebody or trying to place an identity. Like Fela would preach this, but would do this, understand? So, and also in music, coming from the musical angle I was talking the other time, Fela music of Afrobeat is quite complex. You could talk about the jazz influence and you could talk about the African musical influence. Now, if we take that to the Sosoke youth, I'm trying to look at that suffering and smiling part. What are the effects of social media? Trends are just trends. They last 24 hours. But sometimes you do try to push trend more than 24 hours. And that's why I'm focusing on Twitter. And we have influencers, we have musicians also who try to push this trend. And what is missing, for instance, during the NSAS time, because I'm using source, okay, there was this influencer who was part of the people who pushed this NSAS source, okay. Now, I don't want to mention it because of the complexity and the ethics of what I'm saying. But currently now, this influencer is supporting the political leader that most of the influencers and the Twitter giants, the keypad warrior, are against. And this influencer is supporting. So we could look at the complexity of hiding behind the keypads to talk and then going physically to someone to collect money or to support that. So, and that is why I'm looking at that antinomies from Tejumola. I'm also using it to engage that. Look, these Twitter people, just go on Twitter, and because it's social media likes, I think somebody said yesterday, one of the panel, he said, error thrives a lot on social media, like rumor thrives a lot on social media, whether it is true or not, everybody just push it on social media. And with the idea of this doctored Photoshop stuff, people don't know what is true any longer. So I can be in Lagos and claim that I am in London because of social media. So that's that. And then to the second question, let me try and read. In your talk, you engage powerfully with Fela's. That's Tosin. Thank you so much, sir. Powerfully with Fela's appreciation of Western instrument and jazz. We should also describe Western. But how do you do with African jump that are very much part of Fela's important point that jazz itself cannot be described as straightforward Western? Oh, okay. I love that. I love that. It's because it's coming from the music angle, so that's why. Yes, if you look at the precursor of jazz and the evolution of jazz, we could actually trace jazz to Africa. That's true. But also, we know that it has evolved, and that's one thing about culture. Culture is dynamic. It evolves. So if we trace it back, we discover that what we call jazz was actually an improvement of what has been happening before, which started in Africa, not quite all right. But at the same time, right now, because of the instrumentation used in jazz, possibly the instruments right now that are not Africa, the saxophone cannot be Africa. Now, I I think I'm going to borrow a word that I might not call it an ambivalence again. I might call it a marriage or a mismatch of both the African element and the Western element, which, like I said in my conclusion, which is not a conclusion, but discussion continue, that are we just going to look at Fela as an anti-colonial activist, or somebody who could also use the element of colonial remains, what's remaining colonial, and also imbibe it in Africa, because culture is never static, it's dynamic. So tomorrow, maybe Afrobeat is termed Nigerian, for instance, but if you look at the construction of Afrobeat, then we can't say it's 100% African. And instead of saying it's an antinomial or it's an ambivalence, we can just look at it as active ingenuity or active creativity to sell something not just to Africa, but to also to the whole world. So I don't know if I've been able to do justice to the two questions, but thank you so much for that question. Use it.
Thank you. As you say, the conversation will continue, and loudly. So you were all connected, you know where to find each other. Tolu, as the person who dreamt up the panel, can I ask you to have the final words? They are about to terminate our license here.
Okay, I will take a very, very, very brief stab at Dr. Dugi's question. And it is to answer it simply as saying, yes, I do not think that Fela would call himself a thug, especially if our definition of thug is an antisocial person, a belligerent person who projects antisocial behavior. But again, the definition of thuggery that I offer instead of what we have is thuggery is a self-cultivated social alertness that manifests as readiness to antagonize established structures deemed inimical to one's efforts at survival and to interrupt the social machinery by which socio-spatial crises are perpetrated. And it is against this definition that I then read Fela's performance as some act of thuggery. Remember, again, I say, we all are potential thugs, and not as antisocial as people, with predilections towards antisocial behaviors, but as people exactly who can be pushed to grasp at whatever it takes to get a slice, a piece of the good life that the government that the post-colonial African government often does not deliver. Thank you, and I think Fela would agree with me.
Thank you both, and to Yewande, who's no longer here. I just want to tell the audience, this is just a taster. This is just the advertisement for the real work to come. Watch these people. They are working on their PhDs, and I'm sure they will start publishing from this material, and then we can all engage with them more. Thank you for your really brilliant and characterful and smart presentations. And thank you to the audience for choosing to come to this panel. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you all very much. Yewande, you've just arrived in time to say goodbye. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone. All right, enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm sorry, Yewande, that was horrible. I'm really sorry, but we got most of it. Thank you very much all. Bye-bye.